Hi America, and welcome to the American Power Lunch Network. What's the Power Lunch Network? We'll talk about that a little bit later. Right now, first I want to address two issues of super high importance to the freedom movement. And those issues are the two enemies of freedom. The enemies of freedom are not those guys out there who are like Rockefeller or like the leaders of the big corporations who want to create a one world order and want to subject us to a police state. Those are relatively minor, even though they're very powerful and dangerous, but they're relatively minor to the two most vicious enemies of freedom that anybody could imagine. Those enemies of freedom are delusion and discouragement. And right now, from everything that I see, the freedom movement is suffering from exactly those two. It's suffering from delusion in terms of what it believes or what its members believe they are achieving with what they're currently doing. What are we currently doing? We're sitting here, we're talking to each other by email, we're sending each other YouTube videos, we're going to rallies and to meetings, and that's it. And our numbers aren't growing, we're just deceiving ourselves. We're just sitting there spinning the same old tired wheel. During the Ron Paul revolution, when he was really looking like he was serious, that he wanted to win the presidency, we had dynamite energy. But now what happened? Ron Paul thought that he could channel our energy into this new thing that he created, the Campaign for Liberty. And it's a good thing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. The problem is it doesn't have a unifying great goal. It doesn't have the vision. And it doesn't have a really actual method of quickly, within a realistic time frame, being able to achieve what we want to achieve, and that's the important thing. The second enemy of freedom is discouragement. Discouragement has a good aspect to it, because discouragement only sets in when you realize that you've been deluded and that you've been barking up the wrong tree with the things that you've been doing. Not so bad, except when that realization sets in, a lot of people go, oh, well, there's not much I can do. Look at the enemies of freedom. They're so powerful and so well organized and so well funded. We have nothing to oppose that with. So I'm just going to curl up over here in my little hole and keep emailing, keep watching YouTube videos, maybe keep going to some meetings. But what's going to happen beyond that? Very little. You can see the evidence of it right here. If you look at the numbers at the Campaign for Liberty website, they have not grown since September, since the big rally in St. Paul, Minnesota. So, what we need to do in order to fight this discouragement, in order to defeat this enemy, we need to have a vehicle and we need to have a grand vision again. Now, candidates like Ron Paul don't come around very often. We cannot afford to wait for another one like him. He even told us himself, this is not about me, this is about you. This is about liberty, this is about freedom. It's not about me becoming president of the United States. And that's absolutely the truth. We are it. We are the ones who will drive this forward from now. But what are we going to do? What is the great vision that we're going to have that unifies us, that focuses us on a goal that we can actually achieve? I will submit to you that this vision has to be broken up into smaller chunks. The presidency of the United States was a little bit too big for us, of a piece for us to bite off, sorry. And therefore, we sat back and now we think we can just go run for a local dog catcher or a city council or whatever and put up freedom candidates here and there and maybe become a precinct chairman and then let it all fall asleep, because that's what's going to happen, and that's what is happening right now. If we can form an organization, and we can, I'll tell you about that later, if we form an organization in each state that will use as its primary goal, as its primary focus, the governorship of that state, finding a good candidate and electing him to become the governor of that state, that will have the same effect on your state as Ron Paul might have had on the United States had he become president. But your new candidate's job will be much easier, because the power machinery leveled against him, already institutionalized and set into motion, into action, is much, much smaller at the state level than it is at the federal level, where all eyes are concentrated. And they should not be. The founders warned us that we needed a country where all the political power happens or occurs and resides in the states, locally. From the local level, the people inside the states make all the major decisions. The people in Washington only make the federal decisions, like national defense, like who's going to be sent where as a diplomat, for example, and things of that nature. But the whole thing has been turned around, as we all know, and that's what we're trying to return, or that's what we're trying to roll back. And this is exactly the way to do it. The state governor is the most powerful executive in every state. He can veto every single unconstitutional law that any state legislature could possibly put in front of him. Of course, he can be overridden with the veto, with a override vote of 2/3 of the legislature, but that's not that easy. If you have a governor who will rigidly, I would almost say, almost religiously veto every single law that comes before him that is not specifically authorized by the state constitution and by the federal constitution, then you have a potential to influence all of the legislators in your state at the same time, because he can deliver a little speech to them saying, I am vetoing this law because of these and these and these reasons. This law is not authorized by our Constitution. This law is not authorized by the federal Constitution. Therefore, I'm using my veto pen. Come back to me and bring me a law that's constitutional. All of a sudden, these legislators are going to have to go and read what the Constitution actually said. I guarantee you 80%, maybe 90% of them haven't even read their state's Constitution. I would even be surprised if you had read your state's Constitution. I know I haven't read mine here in Texas until only a few months ago, and we call ourselves freedom fighters and constitutionalists. Anyway, once we are able to elect a state governor with that kind of attitude, he has the power of appointment over a lot of key state positions that are manned by the executive. That means he can select people, other constitutionalists who believe like him, that government should not be as large as it is, that states should not be as dependent on the federal government as they are. And then from there, there's a huge public focus all of a sudden happening in the state about what's happening here. Who's this guy? We've never even seen him before, and now he's talking about the Constitution. It'll turn the public debate around. It'll turn the media debate around. Of course, the media are going to start attacking him, but they will have to contend with him for the next 4 years, because his term is 4 years, and a constitutionalist is not going to make any of these mistakes that other people make that will allow the media to eventually kick them out of office. The next thing would be to have an organization that sends delegates from each state level to a national level, where they meet like maybe once or twice a year and talk about the few federal issues that come about, and then maybe organize all the states that are involved in this process and coordinate them in an effort to elect a new US president who is also a constitutionalist. But we know that's not going to come around for another 4 years. The governor's elections here in Texas, the next ones that are happening are in 2010. That's only 2 years from now, not that much time left. I would bet that in your state it's exactly the same thing, so that's something we need to work on. The next thing is, what is the delivery mechanism that we have? What delivery mechanism do we use in order to exert that kind of voting power that will make it possible for us to do this? And it exists, I guarantee you. It will be the topic of our next video segment, though I'm not going to discuss it here right now, because time on YouTube videos is limited, as you all know. So I want to say goodbye to you for now, and I will talk to you next time. Thank you.